Hello, good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Hello, Geeta, Kevin, Yanni, Scott, Ella. Wow, isn't it very late in Poland, Ella? You're up meditating. Very well done. Hello, Meg. Hello, Nora. And good to see you, Jen. So we will start by chanting the Ratana Sutta, which you can see the link up in the live chat. And after that, Bhakti Sudaso will be leading us in meditation, and then we'll be sharing some words of Dhamma. And if you have any questions related on meditation practice, he'll address them at some point, either before or after. All right.
So again, we'll go ahead and start with chanting the Ratana Sutta. So please follow along as best you can. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani dabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantalike sabeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakacha sunantu basitam tasmahi bhutani sameta sabbe vetam karota manusiya pajaya Devacharato chaharanti evaling tasmahi nera kata pamata Yan kinchi vitam vidavahuram vasage suvayam ratanam panitam Nano samang atitathagateena idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Kayam viragam amatam panitam yadajjagasa kyamuni samahito Natena dhammena samatti kinchi idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Yang Buddha seto parivannayi suchim samadhimanandari kanyamahu Samadhina tena samona vijjati idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Ye bhogala atasatam pasata chatari edani yugani honti Te dakineya sugata sasavaka ete sudinnani mahapalani Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Yesu payota manasa dalhena nekamino gotamasa sanangi Te patipata matang vigaya landamudani buddhim munjamana Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena subhati hotu Yatindha kilo patavim sito siya chatum vivate via sampakampiyo Tatupamang sa purisam vadami yo ariya satchani aveccha passati idampi sanghe ratanam panitam yetena satchena subhati hotu ye ariya satchani vibhavayanti gambira panyena sudesitani Kinchapi te honti pusapamata na te bhavangata mangadiyanti Vidampi sanghe ratanam panitam yetena satchena suvati hotu Sahava sadasana sampadaya tayasu dhamma jahita bhavanti Sakaya diti vichike chitancha silabhatam vapi yadati kinchi Chatuvapaye cha vipamuto chashabitanani abhambokatum Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam edena satchena subhati hotu Kinchapi sokam mam karoti papakam kayena vacha uracheta sava Abhambo sota sapatichadaya Abhambata dittapada samuta Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena satchena subhati hotu Vanapagumbe yatha pusita ge gimhanamase patamasmin gimhe Tadupamam dhammavaramadesai Nibbanagamim paramam hitaya Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam yetena satchena subhati hotu Varo varanyo varado varaharo anutaro dhammavaramadesai Vidampi buddhe ratanam panitam yetena satchena subhati hotu Kinam puranam navam nati sambhavam virata citta yatike bhavasmim Te hina bija virulhi chanda nirbanti dhira yatayam paripo Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena satchena subhati hotu Yani bhutani samagatani bhumani vayani va antalike Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam buddham namassama subhati hotu Yani bhutani samagatani bhumani vayani va antalike Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam dhammam namassama subhati hotu Yani bhutani samagatani bhumani vayani va antalike Tathagatam deva manusa pujitam sangham namassama subhati hotu Etena sacha vanjena dukkhavupasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena bhayavupasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena rogavupasamentu te Okay, please get in meditation posture. Sitting up nice and straight. Making sure your shoulders are swiveled back and relaxed. Taking a few deep breaths to help the body and mind relax. And letting the mind settle in the body. After 3 days of practice, constant mindfulness of the body, you should find the mind quickly and easily settles in the body. The mind sticks to the body without too much difficulty. Focusing on feeling the body clearly, intensely, joyfully. You can let yourself smile a little bit as you focus on enjoying the sensations of the body, enjoying the subtle euphoria building as the mind becomes more unified, alert, and clear. Feeling the body intensely without any distraction, not taking the slightest bit of interest in anything other than the body. And when the mind is well settled in the body, stable, bright, alert, recognize that the sensations of the body are constantly changing. Every moment, a batch of sensations appears and immediately disappears. Next moment, a new set of sensations appears and vanishes. Recognizing the insubstantiality, hollowness, the ephemeral, illusory quality of the body. Nothing solid, nothing persistent, just a domain of constant change. Letting go of any expectation regarding the body, opening up to whatever may come, whatever shape, size, texture, temperature the body might be, moment by moment. Open up to that. The body might feel very large, very small, It might disappear entirely for a moment. Not expecting it to be any one way. Just recognizing the constant change, constant appearing and disappearing of all sensations. Dropping the viewpoint that the body is solid, recognizing that the body is not solid. Dropping the view that the body is stable, recognizing that it's not stable. recognizing that the perimeter of the body is also insubstantial, not solid, not stable, not persistent, not real. Dropping the concept that the body has an edge, a boundary. Dropping the concept of body entirely. Just recognizing the impermanence of the physical domain in all its aspects, without any concept of inside or outside. Feeling impermanence, feeling the hollow, empty, insubstantial nature of physical reality. Not holding to either form or formlessness, not rejecting either form or formlessness. Whatever comes, let it come. Whatever goes, let it go. Constantly aware of coming and going. Constantly aware of transience. And relax your posture. Keeping your mind peaceful. So as we've been doing the last couple of days, at this time I'd like to be available to consult about your meditation practice. So we've had 2 full days of sati and samadhi practice, so developing mindfulness, concentration, and equanimity, which is the foundation. Those 3 qualities are the foundation of meditation practice. And today, 1 day of developing anicca sanya, the recognition of impermanence, which is, again, one of the 2 flagship methods of insight meditation that the Buddha spoke about over and over and over again, and which can produce radical, fundamental alterations in how we experience the world. And alterations that leave the mind extremely peaceful, extremely resilient, that leave the mind capable of facing samsara without being knocked astray. without being disturbed, without being disrupted. And one of the qualities that also comes from developing these practices is a sense of gentleness in the mind. So this is one thing which really needs to be emphasized. I don't remember off the top of my head which teacher this was, but there was one teacher who said, if your meditation practice does not result in stronger compassion, then you're not doing it correctly. So, cultivating the perception of impermanence, if we're doing it properly, leads to a gentle mind, a loving mind, a kind mind. It does not lead to coldness, it does not lead to apathy, it does not lead to heartlessness. If that's the results we're getting, then something's a little bit off in our approach. Something's not quite in tune. Something's a little bit off the path. So there should be a feeling of gentleness, of resilience, a spaciousness in the mind as we delve deeper and deeper into the recognition of absolute reality, deeper and deeper into the recognition of what's always been right in front of us. The hollowness, the emptiness, the insubstantiality of all things. It's always been right here. We're just not used to seeing it because we're used to living in a world of our own imagining. A world of solid, persistent objects, a world of individual people with solid, persistent traits. But this is just a figment of our own imagination. It's just a story that we tell ourselves. Opening up to the recognition of impermanence, that story starts to melt and dissolve and fade away. Like a snowman, when the sun comes out, it starts melting, dissolving, losing its shape, till eventually there's nothing left. So we need to be willing to let our delusions melt away with the confidence that what we'll find in its place is something far more magnificent, something far more peaceful, something far more sublime. And as we cultivate the perception of impermanence and its natural culmination in the recognition of not self, then all sense of separation between self and other naturally dissolves. And so this is part of where the arising of compassion comes. And when we recognize that there is no separation between self and other, that there is no self and other, then naturally we care just as strongly for all others as we do for ourselves. Naturally we do what we can for others as well as ourselves, without any hesitation. So at this time, if you have any questions about your meditation practice, how things have been going throughout the day in the last 3 days, please go ahead and type them in the live chat and I'll answer them as best I can.
Thank you, Bante. And hello, welcome to Elaine, Alicia. Isn't Alicia also in Spain? That's far into the night. We have hardcore night meditators.
Shout out to our Europe crew. Loving you guys. Keep checking in. Happy to have you with us.
And hello, Edward. Good to see you, Lamo. Sally, welcome back. Boon, Marielle, Tina, Ron, and Stacy. Good to see you all. So Marielle is asking, today was the hardest day for me. I lost it silently with my dad. I'm not really proud of myself, but he really got into my nerves. How to deal with anger and still be in that zone. I really tried to keep my emotions inside, but I couldn't.
Go and give him a hug.
Aww.
Give him a nice big hug. Tell him how much you appreciate him and care about him. It's technically breaking the silence, but I'll give you a pass on this one. That's it. And then tomorrow morning, do something nice for him. Maybe make pancakes. I don't know. Do something nice. I'm assuming you know how to make pancakes, but maybe you don't. But do something nice for him. And try to cultivate a sense of gentleness and kindness towards him. Remember all the good things he's done for you. And so bring up a sense of gratitude and appreciation. So of course he has his flaws and failings. Everyone does until they attain awakening. Everybody has their flaws and failings. And he probably doesn't understand what you're doing or why you're doing it. He probably just thinks it's some weird thing that his daughter got into. That's fine. At least he tolerates it to some degree. Many people's parents are very intolerant of what they're doing. My father passed away a long time ago. May he be happy and healthy wherever he is. But he had the belief that meditation practice was inherently evil. And therefore he was completely intolerant of it. He was completely opposed to it. So at least your dad lets you meditate. Maybe he doesn't quite take it seriously, but at least he lets it happen. At least he doesn't fight against it. So remember his good qualities. Remember especially the kindness and caring he's shown to you over the years. So try to bring up that sense of gentleness towards him, sense of appreciation towards him. Okay.
Thank you, Bante. Marielle is saying, okay, I will leave my pride behind and follow your advice. Oh, so cute. And Tina is saying that I think she hasn't been following the retreat because she's working much. She said, hello, I just joined because I was missing evening sessions. Oh.
Well, Tina, you're always welcome to join in. Even if you're not doing the retreat, you can still join in.
And says, my husband is doing the 7-day retreat. I got my procrastinating colleague to work on a different project. I get a break for 1 month. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Great. Good for you.
Oh, Ron is her significant other. Okay, great.
Interesting. Okay.
Says, I'm in this retreat while significant other got rid of a colleague. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Ron is asking, when do you know you are in samadhi? There is body alertness, and then there is no feeling of body, but it's short. Is that okay? At times, hand over hand loses sensation, which is where the focus is.
So make sure your mind is very sharp and clear, that you're very clearly, precisely knowing your experience moment by moment. So body sensation does sometimes disappear, especially when practicing the recognition of impermanence. That can happen. But usually during the stage of samadhi, developing samadhi, usually at that time your body won't disappear. So if it does disappear, that's usually a sign that our mindfulness has gotten weak for a moment and we've just kind of spaced out a little bit. So make sure that's not what's happening. Make sure your mind is very awake and alert. So samadhi, the mind is very stable. It's not distracted at all, not scattered at all. It's only interested in the meditation object. It never leaves the meditation object. And it is completely awake, the most awake you've ever been. That's what samadhi feels like. So make sure it's like that. Again, if the body disappears while practicing samadhi practice, it's usually because we've had a temporary lapse of awareness, a temporary lapse of mindfulness. We've dozed off a little bit for a moment. So make sure that's not what's happening. Okay.
Great. And Kevin is reminding all of us to practice dana. And if you wish to do so, you can go www.buddhistinsights.com/donate. And he's asking, or is it now the new Empty Cloud site? I am. No, it's always buddhistinsights.com/donate. And if you want to learn more about the monastery, you can go on emptycloud.org. But for donations, it's always the same organization. We just have 2 websites. Because why not? And Drew asks, some mindfulness practices emphasize near constant mindfulness of all 6 sense bases. When practicing mindfulness of the body, should we keep the mind focused on the body and not on emotion/dhammas?
Yes, I would say that if you want your samadhi to develop, you should keep your attention on one area of experience, not trying to keep all of them at once. Because if you do, you'll notice that your mind tends to bounce around among different things. The exception to this is when practicing objectless samadhi, animitta samadhi. But in that case, you're not choosing anything as the object, and you're still not letting the mind move around. So that's a bit more difficult of a technique. It's a bit more advanced. But also in that case, again, you're not letting the mind bounce. What tends to happen when we are open to multiple objects and multiple senses is that our mind tends to get this like ping pong in a dryer effect, where it's just like boom, 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 bouncing around like sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, boom, 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 boom. And then you never get samadhi. Your mind never settles down. It just keeps bouncing around from object to object. So that's not cultivating samadhi. It's not cultivating peacefulness. It's not cultivating insight. It's only cultivating restlessness and impulsivity. That's not good. So I don't recommend trying to be aware of multiple senses at the same time. Choose one and let the mind be still there. You'll still be aware of the other senses, but they'll recede into the background a bit. So they'll be there, but they'll feel a little more distant. That's okay. Again, unless you're practicing objectless samadhi, in which case everything is equidistant and the mind is completely still in its knowing. And that knowing is not tied to anything in particular. But that's a more advanced technique once again, and it's usually much easier to do after you've already developed samadhi in the object-based way, and after you started to make some progress in developing the recognition of impermanence. So I'll probably talk about that in a couple of days, but not today. Okay.
Thank you. He had also added, I meant all 4 foundations of mindfulness simultaneously.
Yeah, same answer. Yeah, not recommended.
Okay. And he's saying, I'm also unable to wholeheartedly participate and I'm piggybacking off the opportunity. So my apologies for any misconduct. No, good conduct. Practice is always good conduct. So you're always welcome. Rejoice on your own goodness that you're practicing as much as you can.
Yeah, so this is one of the very few retreats where we allow partial attendance.
Yeah, that's true. Special pandemic opportunity. And Tina is also saying, I can't wait to attend these sessions in person and meet you both when quarantine is over. I feel like you both are my friends. Oh, yes, we feel the same way. Actually, this is one of the beautiful things that has happened during this sort of tragic circumstance. So we are quite happy to have all these new virtual friends that soon hopefully won't be virtual anymore, just virtual anymore. And Ethan says, Bante, when dissolving the boundaries of the body, I was noticing the feeling of the feet versus feeling of the floor, butt versus chair, arms versus armrests, etc. That was working okay. PD arising stronger than before. Was that what you were talking about, noticing boundaries?
Yeah, so then recognize that the sensations along the boundary zone are also constantly arising and ceasing, constantly shifting and changing, which means that the boundary line itself is constantly changing. Where you feel the edge of the body to be is constantly changing. And the more you recognize that, you'll also tend to notice that it's arbitrary. The edge of the body is actually quite a bit farther out than we think it is. And actually, the more you recognize that, the farther it recedes into the distance. This gets really fun if you explore this. So try it out, see what happens.
Cool. And Sally is saying, today strong thoughts I have held solidly regarding past karmic result arise after meditation. Thank you for the guided meditation. I experienced a bit of body sensation changing, empty feeling. However, I still have a solid concept that the working of karma, causes and result, is fixed, constant. How to apply that emptiness to theory like law of karma?
You're getting a little ahead of yourself. Start with your body. So this is a little bit like someone in preschool asking to study calculus. And the answer is slow down, take it easy, you'll get there. Start with your body. So the relationship between karma and the perception of impermanence, that's a little more advanced of a topic. Suffice to say, though, that as you develop your recognition of impermanence practice, then you'll come to that recognition on your own. You'll come to that answer on your own. And that answer will be much deeper and more profound than anything I can say about it. So, of course, karma is karma. The universe runs on karma. There's no escaping that. And yet, in emptiness, there is no karma. And these two statements are not the slightest bit contradictory. But once again, these are just words. Your own experience will be much more profound than these words. Okay?
Thank you. And Ethan is following up on the question that he asked earlier. Says, okay, thanks, Bante. Is that how infinite consciousness develops? The boundaries expanding idea, I mean?
That's not the purpose. In this practice, the purpose is not to develop the experience of infinite consciousness. The purpose is to develop the recognition of impermanence. And also to recognize that consciousness is impermanent for that matter, which we'll get to maybe tomorrow or the next day. But for now, we're just trying to recognize that body is impermanent. And that also includes what we think the edges and boundaries of the body are. That also is impermanent. That's the practice. We're not actively trying to cultivate infinite consciousness. That's not actually a practice that I teach. And it's not something which I've seen anywhere in the suttas, the Buddha actively encouraging as being something which supports enlightenment. So, and I've actually never encountered any teacher who has taught the experience of infinite consciousness as being an important part of their system. If anybody knows of one, please let me know, because I would be interested. But I've never encountered one who uses that as a major component of their system.
Okay, and Edward is saying, hardest today, sitting and walking so much in 3 days have made me achy. Today, I could clearly feel currents traveling from my feet to my arms and bubbles in my stomach.
Okay, great. So you're getting more aware of the inside of your body. That's good. If you're having some body difficulties, then you might try doing more walking meditation. You might also try doing prostration practice. You might do some stretching during the breaks. But you might also find that as your samadhi develops and your equanimity gets stronger, that the body aches just aren't an issue for you anymore. Also, as you develop the recognition of impermanence, then body aches just kind of melt away along with everything else. You recognize that the aches also are insubstantial and therefore unburdensome, not a problem. Okay?
And Ella is asking, is it the right direction to feel in samadhi like the mind and body are becoming kind of a stable rock?
Yeah, yeah. That tends to be part of the experience of samadhi, this feeling of deep, unshakable stability. Yeah.
And Boone is saying, Bante, during sitting, I can feel that my head tilted to one side. So should I center it?
Depends. If your samadhi is going well, then don't move. It doesn't actually matter if your posture is slightly off. If your samadhi is going well, you don't want to do anything that might disturb or disrupt your samadhi. So it's better to sit still with slightly incorrect posture and good samadhi than to adjust your posture and break your samadhi. So I recommend sticking, just let the body be still and stay focused on the samadhi practice. But it's also not wrong to slowly, gently, carefully fix your posture. That's also not incorrect as long as you maintain clear awareness while you're doing it. And also, if you feel like your bad posture is weakening your samadhi, then you should definitely adjust it. But you do need to be careful here that we don't just wind up spending the whole meditation period adjusting our posture, because that's not helpful. So generally speaking, I recommend letting the body be still, even if your posture is not perfect. But on the other hand, small, minor adjustments once every few minutes or so is not a problem. It's not a big deal.
And Ethan is following up on before saying, thanks, Bante. I know that Aya Kema talked about infinite consciousness. I know we're getting a bit off topic, though. Feels like. I don't know if you wanted to address that.
Well, Aya Kema was a very interesting practitioner who cultivated all kinds of far out and unusual experiences in meditation. So that's a whole other conversation. I have a lot of respect for Aya Kema, by the way, and I highly recommend reading her books. But I don't necessarily practice the way that she practices. And since she is not currently with us, it's hard to ask her questions. So thanks for mentioning that, but I think I'll have to set it aside.
All right. And Sally is asking, in meditation, when we are at beginning stage of building stillness, should we focus on the defined area still as a whole, or we observe the changing? For example, pain. Shall we follow how pain moves, arising, passing away?
When you're developing samadhi, just hold the mind still. Don't move it. But if you want to experiment with the recognition of impermanence, that's fine. And sometimes you'll find that if you practice impermanence for a little while, that your mind starts to stabilize, and then you can go back to the samadhi, and it'll be more effective. And the recognition of impermanence, as I mentioned earlier, can be an effective way of handling pain. Not always, but sometimes it helps. But yeah, if you're practicing samadhi, you just hold the mind still. Don't move the mind around. It doesn't help. It just makes things worse. But if you want to practice the recognition of impermanence, go ahead, try it out. Do it for a while. Go back to samadhi, do samadhi for a while. Go back to impermanence, do impermanence for a while. That's fine.
And Mark is saying, sometimes during meditation, I feel the need to take a deep breath. I remember reading a book about the jhanas, and they said that if this occurs, to not take the breath. What are your thoughts?
Go by the results. I mean, generally speaking, just let your body breathe without trying to control it. Generally speaking, that's the best option. But actually, I have noticed that sometimes, especially if the mind is getting a bit distracted or spacey, then taking a deep breath can help to settle the mind and reestablish attention on the body. So, taking a deep breath or two or three can be a good way of kind of resetting your mind when your mind is getting off track. And actually, this is something that Ajahn Chah would recommend as well. Ajahn Chah would recommend if you're getting spacey or distracted or restless during meditation, then to take three deep breaths, three long deep breaths. And that has a way of resetting the mind. But once again, you don't want to overuse this. You just want to use it rarely when the mind is getting a little out of control or a little bit unclear. You don't want to just use it for the whole meditation period. That's not very helpful. Okay.
And Boone is asking, Bante, when you say let the mind be centered in one place, can you explain more on this?
Isn't that clear enough?
Clearly not. So,
So you choose a place in your body and you center your attention at that place. So the mind does not move from that place. You're devoting the majority of your attention to that place, but you're still aware of everything else. You just don't point the mind towards anything else. It's like when you're looking at something. So right now, for example, I'm looking at the tripod. So when I'm looking at the tripod, then most of my attention is on the tripod, but I'm still aware of everything in my peripheral vision. But I'm not turning my eyes to look at the other things. My eyes stay pointed at the tripod. So it's the same. You choose something in your body, like I generally use my hands, and you point your mind there. You're still aware of the things in your periphery. You're still aware of the rest of your body and the rest of your senses, but you don't turn your attention towards them. You keep your attention pointed at your hands or whatever other part of the body you're using. And you keep your attention pointed at that for the entire period of meditation. That's what I mean by centering your attention on a part of the body.
Great. And Nora, I believe we actually know physically in person. You've come here on retreat, Nora, right? But while you respond to that, Nora says, is it normal to feel a little scared to experience your form dissolving? It was a little disconcerting to feel like I was disappearing.
Yeah, that's quite common. Quite common. You get over it eventually. Okay. Next question.
And yes, Nora, in fact, was here on retreat. If I remember correctly, you're in Philly. Hope everything is good in Philadelphia or wherever you are. Much metta to you. And Sally says, can I focus on the edge of the body for meditation object? The practicals at the edge of body, always jumping, obviously nonstop. Even now I'm listening to Bante's talk now. Is it, if okay, how to observe properly? Bante mentioned a few minutes ago that the edge will expand, wondering whether the edge meditation will lead to that.
It might expand or it might contract or it might disappear entirely. Don't expect it to do anything in particular. So I recommend holding attention in the body. Trying to hold attention on the edge of the body may not be the most effective option, but you can try it out if you want. Try it out and see what happens. Do a couple of meditation periods that way and see how it goes. So ultimately, we have to know for ourselves. So yeah, you can try it out, see how it goes. It might work for you.
Okay, well, that was the last question that is currently on the live chat. So now, of course, as soon as I say that's all, another one will appear. So that's all, perhaps for tonight.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ah, there you go. Sally asks, when we are contemplating on anicca, sometimes I felt I am using thinking. Is that okay?
No. There's thinking about anicca and there's seeing it. There's thinking about it and there's feeling it. These are two different things. Thinking is thinking, feeling is feeling. So you might use a little bit of thought at the very beginning just to remind yourself what you're doing. You might say something like unstable, hollow, empty, impermanent. You might use words like that just to briefly remind yourself of what you're doing. But even that is a little bit clunky, a little bit awkward, especially if your samadhi is strong. That's just going to weaken your samadhi a bit. Ultimately, we're not trying to think about impermanence, we're trying to feel it. Feel it right here in this moment. There's no space for thinking, there's only space for feeling. And when your samadhi is really strong, that becomes incredibly clear. Thinking is way too slow and awkward. Feeling is the only real thing. Okay?
Great, thank you. And Drew is sharing that Philly is experiencing a curve of coronavirus. We expected more hospitals filled, and happily some floors are empty and anticipated staff board. Sadhu. Okay, wonderful.
Great.
All right, may all beings be happy and peaceful by the merit of our practice. And thank you so much, Bhante, for being such a bodhisattva, teaching every single day. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And sadhu to all of you as well that are practicing to become better people for the benefit of all beings. And we'll meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. For more Dhamma and more meditation. And as usual, 7:30 p.m. as well. And we'll probably have an extra session during the day. We'll see. All right, stay tuned and have a great night. Bye-bye.